My necklace is missing. It was here last night.
My chief, I did not want to say anything.
Speak.
I saw Merida leaving your chamber 2 nights ago. It was late. I thought she came to clean. But she looked nervous.
You were in my room?
Yes, my chief. The door was open. I went to sweep.
And you touched nothing?
I did not take your gold. And you touched nothing.
Nothing?
I did not take your gold. I swear.
My chief, we found this under her sleeping mat.
That is not mine.
You stole from me.
No, someone is lying.
Tie her hands.
My chief, please.
Enough! At sunrise, the elders will decide her fate.
Let's see how far you go now, stupid girl.
They dragged Merida through the village square, her hands tied, tears streaming down her face. The chief's gold had been found under her bed. Everyone believed she was a thief. Everyone. But what they didn't know was that the real thief was standing right there in the crowd, watching Merida's life being destroyed and smiling. Let me tell you how an innocent girl's name was dragged through the mud and how the truth finally came to light. The morning was quiet. Merida was already awake. She swept the compound, fetched water, and lit the cooking fire. She did this every day. She never complained. She never arrived late. In 3 months of working in Chief Okafor's house, she had never caused trouble. That morning, trouble came to find her. It began with a scream. Chief Okafor's voice exploded from inside his chamber. "My gold! Somebody has stolen my gold!" Everyone ran toward the sound. The housemaids, the gateman, the young men who worked outside. They all gathered at the chief's door, pushing to see what happened. Merida ran too. She stood at the back, trying to see. The chief's iron chest was open. The red cloth inside was empty. 3 gold bars were gone. Gold that had belonged to his father and his father's father before that. The chief turned to face everyone. His voice dropped low. "Search this compound. Search every room, every corner, every mat." When a man like Chief Okafor speaks quietly, it means he is very, very angry. Ngozi stepped forward. She had worked in that house for 8 years. The chief trusted her completely. "Leave it to me, my chief," she said. "I will find the truth." 1 hour later, they found something. Under Merida's sleeping mat, 2 gold bars wrapped in cloth were hidden where she slept every night. The gateman lifted them up. He did not say anything. He did not need to say anything. Every person in that compound turned to look at Merida. "No!" Her voice shook. "No, that is not mine. I never touched that gold. I never—" "Bring her outside," the chief said. 2 men grabbed her arms. Merida's legs felt weak. They pulled her into the open courtyard. The morning sun was bright, too bright. She could see every face, every eye staring at her. "I swear on my mother's life, I did not steal anything. Please believe me. I am begging you." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke for her. Then Ngozi stepped forward. Her face looked sad, concerned, like a woman who did not want to say what she was about to say. "My chief," Ngozi said quietly, 2 days ago, I saw Merida walking away from your corridor. I said nothing because I did not want to cause trouble. I am sorry I kept quiet." The chief looked at Merida. His eyes were heavy with disappointment. He had liked this girl. He had believed she was honest. He had been wrong, or so he thought. "Call the village elders," he said. "Let everyone witness this." They tied Merida's hands. They walked her through the village square. People stopped what they were doing to watch. Women stared. Old men hissed and shook their heads. Merida cried as she walked. She could not stop. That evening, they locked her inside the old storage hut, alone, in the dark. The door was bolted shut from outside. As they locked Merida away, Ngozi walked slowly back to her room. Under her wrapper, tucked inside a hidden pocket, the rest of the chief's gold pressed cold and heavy against her body. And she smiled. Let us go back to 3 months before. Before the accusations, before the tears, before the tied hands and the watching eyes. back to the day Merida first walked through Chief Okafor's gate. She had walked for 2 days to get there. 2 days on dusty roads, carrying a small bag with 2 dresses, a wrapper, and a photograph of her mother. Her feet were swollen, her throat was dry, but her eyes were bright, full of hope. Her mother was sick, very sick, the kind of sickness that needed medicine every month, medicine that cost money their small village could not provide. Merida was 20 years old. She had no father, no rich uncle, no land to sell. What she had was 2 strong hands and a willing heart. When she heard that Chief Okafor's household was looking for a housemaid, she did not hesitate. She tied her wrapper tight and she walked. The chief looked at her for a long time when she arrived. "You are young," he said. "I am strong, my chief," she replied. "I will work hard. I will not disappoint you." He hired her that same day. From the very first morning, Merida walked like someone who understood what was at stake. She walked before everyone. She cleaned without being asked. She cooked with care. She spoke respectfully to everyone, from the chief himself down to the youngest worker at the gate. The other servants liked her quickly. She made them laugh. She helped them when their work was heavy. She never gossiped, never complained. Every 2 weeks, she sent money home. Not much, but enough for her mother's medicine, enough to keep her alive. At night, she would lie on her mat and smile at the ceiling. For the first time in her life, things were working. She was building something real. She did not know someone was watching her. Ngozi had noticed Merida from the very first day. She watched how quickly the chief approved of her, watched how the other servants warmed to her, watched how easily this new girl moved through the compound with her honest face and her quiet ways. And Ngozi began to think, because Ngozi had a very serious problem. For the past 6 months, she had been stealing from the chief. Small amounts at first, a little gold here, a little there. She told herself he would never notice. He was a rich man, he had plenty. But the debt she was hiding was growing. A merchant in the next town was losing patience. He had given her money months ago and she had promised to repay him. She had used that money on things she was too ashamed to name. She needed more gold, soon, and she needed someone to blame. If the chief ever checked his chest and noticed what was missing, she needed a name ready, a face to point to. Merida. New. Alone. No family nearby to defend her. No history in this village. Perfect. Now we return to the present, to the dark storage hut. Merida sat alone on the cold ground, her wrapper pulled tight around her shoulders, her face wet with tears she had stopped trying to wipe away. She was not thinking about justice. She did not believe justice would come for someone like her. She was thinking about her mother, sick, waiting, 2 villages away. "Please," she whispered into the darkness, "please, do not let her hear about this." But in the main house, someone else could not sleep. Emeka, the chief's 18-year-old son. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, turning something over and over in his mind. Something did not feel right. He could not yet say what it was, but he was going to find out. The elders arrived at dawn. 7 old men, walking slowly with their staffs, their faces serious. When the elders of Okafor's village gathered, it meant something important was happening. People followed them from every corner of the village. By the time they sat down in the compound, a large crowd had gathered outside the gate. Everyone wanted to see the girl who stole the chief's gold. They brought Merida out of the storage hut. She had not slept. Her eyes were swollen. Her wrapper was dirty from sitting on the floor all night. She walked into the open compound and saw all those faces staring at her. Her legs almost gave way. The eldest elder, a man named Odogu, spoke first. "We are here to hear the truth. Let the evidence be brought forward." The gateman stepped forward. He placed the 2 gold bars on the ground in front of the elders. "These were found under her sleeping mat," he said. "I found them myself." Odogu looked at Merida. "What do you say?" "I did not put them there." Her voice was weak but steady. "I have never touched the chief's gold. I did not even know where he kept it." "Then how did it get under your mat?" another elder asked. Merida opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer, because she did not know. How do you explain something you did not do? How do you prove that your hands are clean when the evidence says otherwise? She is a stranger here, someone in the crowd called out. Nobody knows her family. Nobody can speak for her. That was true, and it was the worst part. Then Ngozi stepped forward. She walked slowly, like a woman carrying heavy sorrow. She greeted the elders with both hands. She stood before them with her eyes cast down. I did not want to be here today, she began. Merida is my junior in this house. I trained her. I showed her how we do things here. It pains my heart deeply. She paused, letting the silence do its work. But I must speak the truth. 3 times in the past month, I saw Merida near the chief's corridor at strange hours. I said nothing because I trusted her. I blame myself for staying quiet. Murmurs moved through the crowd like wind. The other servants were asked to speak. None of them had seen Merida do anything wrong, but none of them had anything strong enough to help her either. Their words landed softly and disappeared. Merida's words landed and disappeared too. The elders whispered among themselves for a long time. Then Odogu raised his hand for silence. The evidence is clear. The testimony confirms it. This girl came into an honest man's house and repaid his kindness with theft. He looked at Merida with hard eyes. She will be banished from this village. Her face will be marked with charcoal, the mark of a thief. She will carry it wherever she goes. Merida's knees hit the ground, not because she fell, but because they gave way completely. Banished, marked, finished. Everything she had worked for, her mother's medicine, her small dreams, gone. Ngozi stood to the side, her face a perfect mask of grief. She even wiped her eyes once, just once, enough for people to see. But across the compound, leaning against the far wall, with her arms folded, Emeka watched. He did not watch Merida. He watched Ngozi. He watched the way her shoulders relaxed when the judgment was announced, the way her grief disappeared just a little too quickly, the way she wiped that one tear, but her eyes remained dry. Emeka's mother's voice came back to him clearly, words spoken 1 year ago before sickness took her away. Emeka, watch Ngozi. She smiles with her mouth, but never with her eyes. The judgment was set for sunrise the next day. Merida would be marked and sent away before the morning meal. That night, Emeka sat alone in his room thinking. Something about the gold was bothering him. Something small, something that did not fit. And then, quietly, it came to him. Something that did not make sense at all. Emeka did not sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. The compound was quiet. Everyone had gone to rest, satisfied that justice would be served at sunrise. But Emeka was not satisfied. He kept thinking about one small thing, one question that nobody had asked. How did anyone know to search the servants' quarters in the first place? He got up before dawn and went to find his father. Chief Okafor was sitting alone in his chamber, the empty iron chest still open on the floor beside him. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in one day. He loved that gold. It was all he had left of his father. Baba, can I ask you something? The chief looked up. Sit down. Emeka sat. He chose his words carefully. Who told you to search the servants' quarters? When the gold went missing, who suggested it? The chief frowned. Ngozi. She came to me and said she had seen Merida behaving strangely. She suggested we search immediately before anything was moved. Emeka nodded slowly. And Baba, when was the last time you opened that chest before yesterday? When was the last time you saw the gold with your own eyes? The chief opened his mouth, then stopped. He thought about it, really thought about it. He paused. 8 months ago, maybe 9. I had no reason to open it. I trusted it was there. So it is possible, Emeka said carefully, that some gold was already missing before Merida even arrived in this compound? Silence. Heavy, terrible silence. One of the men picked up the cloth the gold had been wrapped in. He turned it over. In the corner, embroidered in small, neat stitches, was a name. Ngozi. It was her sewing, her thread, her hand. Chief Okafor appeared in the doorway. He looked at the gold on the floor. He looked at the debt paper. Then he looked at Ngozi. He said nothing for a very long time. My chief, I can explain, Ngozi began. Bring her outside, the chief said quietly. They searched the rest of her room after that. Sewn into the lining of her mattress, they found 2 more small pieces of gold, pieces that had been filed off the bars gradually, month by month, so the bars would look almost complete. She had been careful. She had been patient. She had been stealing slowly for 9 months. The village was called again. People came quickly. Word had spread already. By the time everyone gathered in the compound, the full story was beginning to take shape. A servant came forward, an older woman named Adaeze, who cooked in the back kitchen. She had been afraid to speak before, but now she cleared her throat and stood before the elders. I saw Ngozi, Adaeze said, 3 weeks ago, late at night. I could not sleep and I went to get water. I saw her coming out of the chief's corridor. She was carrying something under her wrapper. I thought it was none of my business. She looked at the ground. I am sorry I did not speak. Another servant nodded. I saw her too, once, near the corridor. Then the oldest gateman raised his hand. The night before the gold was reported missing, Ngozi asked me to leave the inner gate unlocked. She said she needed to check something for the chief. I did not question her. One by one, the small things that had seemed unimportant now became very important. Ngozi tried 3 different stories. First, she said the gold was given to her by the chief's late wife. Then, she said she was keeping it safe. Then, she said someone had planted it to destroy her. Each story collapsed before she finished telling it. The elders conferred quietly. Then Elder Odogu turned to the compound with his staff raised. Open the storage hut, he said. Bring Merida out. The bolt was pulled back. The door swung open. Merida stepped out slowly, blinking in the bright light. She looked confused, frightened. She did not yet understand what was happening. She saw the gold on the ground. She saw Ngozi standing in the center of the compound, surrounded by people. She saw the chief's face. And then she saw Emeka. He looked at her and gave one small nod. It is over, that nod said. The truth came out. Merida's hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders began to shake, not with fear this time, with relief. The village fell completely silent. Every eye moved to Chief Okafor. He stood tall in the center of his compound, the debt paper in his hand, the gold at his feet, and the woman he had trusted for 8 years standing before him with no more lies left to tell. He had almost destroyed an innocent girl. He had almost marked her face and sent her away to suffer for something she never did. Everyone waited to hear what he would say. Chief Okafor did not speak immediately. He stood in the middle of his compound, looking at the gold on the ground, looking at the debt paper in his hand, looking at Ngozi. Then he turned and looked at Merida, standing at the door of the storage hut where she had spent 2 nights crying alone in the dark. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his voice was steady and strong. Bring everyone closer, he said. What I am about to say, I want every ear in this village to hear. The crowd pressed forward. Even people outside the gate stretched their necks to listen. The chief began. 8 years ago, I welcomed Ngozi into my home. I trusted her the way I trust my own blood. I gave her authority, I gave her respect. I defended her name whenever anyone questioned her character. He paused. My late wife came to me 1 year before she died. She sat where I was standing and she said to me, "Okafor, watch that woman. She smiles with her mouth but not with her eyes." I told my wife she was imagining things. His voice broke slightly. He steadied himself. I was wrong, and my stubbornness almost destroyed an innocent girl. He turned to face Ngozi directly. "You stole from me for 9 months. You stole the gold my father left me, the gold his father left him before that. You stole it slowly so I would not notice, and when the time came to face your crime, you tied it around the neck of a young woman who came here with nothing but honest hands and a sick mother to care for." Ngozi opened her mouth. "Do not speak," the chief said. Just 3 words, but they silenced her completely. He turned to the elders. "Here is my judgment." The compound was so quiet, you could hear the birds in the trees outside the gate. Ngozi will return every piece of gold. The debts she created are her own burden to carry. She will receive the mark she prepared for Merida, the charcoal mark of a thief. She will carry it on her face as she leaves this village today. She will not return, not in my lifetime, not in my children's lifetime. She is banished permanently. He let that settle. Then he walked slowly toward Merida. Merida stood very still. Her eyes were wet. Her wrapper was still dirty from 2 nights on the floor of that hut. The chief stopped in front of her. Then he did something nobody expected. He bowed his head. Chief Okafor, a man of title and authority, he bowed his head to a 20-year-old housemaid. "Merida," he said, "this compound failed you. I failed you. You came here with an honest heart and we rewarded you with shame and chains. I am sorry." A sound moved through the crowd. Women covered their mouths. Some people looked at the ground, ashamed of how quickly they had believed the worst. Merida tried to speak. She could not find words at first. Then she straightened her back and lifted her chin. "My chief," she said quietly, "I forgive you. I forgive all of you. Bitterness will not cure what I suffered, but your honesty today has healed more than you know." There was not a dry eye in that compound. The chief reached into the folds of his robe and brought out a small pouch. He placed it in Merida's hands. It was heavy. She looked inside and gasped softly. Gold coins, more than she had ever seen in her life. "For your mother's medicine," the chief said, "and for every tear you cried in that hut." He was not finished. "Ngosi's position in this household is empty," he announced to everyone. "From today, Merida takes her place. She will lead this household with the same honest hands she arrived with." Emeka stood to the side, watching quietly. He said nothing, but his eyes were warm. His mother would have been proud. Then came Ngosi's walk. The charcoal mark was pressed to her face. Her wrapper, her belonging, and everything else were brought out and placed at her feet. The merchant she owed money to had already sent word. He was coming to collect. Her lover, the man she had been stealing gold to impress, had disappeared the moment he heard her name connected to theft. He did not even send a message. She had nothing. She picked up her bundle and she walked through the compound, through the gate, through the village square where just 2 days ago she had watched Merida being dragged with tied hands. People stepped back as she passed, not with anger, with something worse than anger. Silence. Nobody insulted her. Nobody threw things. They simply moved aside and let her pass, like she was already a ghost, like she had already ceased to exist in their world. She walked until the village disappeared behind her. Alone, marked, finished. That evening, Merida sat outside in the compound she now managed. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. She held the pouch of gold coins in both hands, thinking about her mother, about medicine, about the long walk home she would make it soon to deliver it herself. Emeka came and sat nearby. They were quiet together for a moment. "Your mother," he said. "She was right about Ngosi." "Mothers are usually right," Merida replied softly. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun went down. Inside the compound, the chief sat alone in his chamber. The iron chest was closed. The gold was back where it belonged, but he kept the dead paper on the table in front of him as a reminder. A reminder to listen better, to look deeper. He would never again let loyalty blind him to the truth. He picked up a small piece of cloth from the table, his late wife's. He held it quietly. "You are right," he whispered. "You are always right." The next morning, Merida woke before the sun. She swept the compound, she fetched water, she lit the cooking fire. She did this not because she was afraid, not because she had something to prove, but because this was who she was. And finally, everyone knew it. And the chief's words, spoken that day, were passed from mouth to mouth across every village for years to come. Today, we almost committed a great evil. We almost destroyed an innocent soul because we were quick to believe and slow to investigate. Let this be a lesson to all of us. A good name is worth more than all the gold in the world. The innocent may suffer for a moment, but lies cannot hide forever. Truth will always come to light, and when it does, the liar loses everything. The gold, the trust, the life they built was on deception. But the innocent will always be restored. Remember this day, remember Merida, and never let it happen again. Thank you for watching and support. Let us know your thoughts about this story in the comment section and subscribe if you haven't. See you in the next video.